All right, this is Frank Yosa, CEO of Ketone Ester, and Steve Zarpas. We're here with Duke. Duke, can you describe, your background in all of this world of keto when you got into this?
Absolutely. Well, I was first introduced to the keto lifestyle in 2013. At the time, just a little bit about myself. I was a college football player, had a brief stint in the Arena Football League, was also a college strength coach and a college offensive line coach. And from the time I had finished playing till my 7-year run of coaching college football and being a strength coach, I had went where I played at 300 pounds, and I had gained an additional 45 pounds and was at an unhealthy 345.
Wow.
I then got the opportunity of a lifetime to leave the college rankings and go to into the private sector that specifically saw me being able to work with a company that trained offensive linemen exclusively. So I was the director of player personnel and a performance coach for a company that did that. And at the time, I was introduced to the keto diet and the keto lifestyle. At my lowest weight, I ended up getting to 236 pounds, stabilized around 245 very often, but then got into powerlifting. And I realized very quickly, for me to be competitive at powerlifting, I needed to stay around the 255 to 260 range. And I'm sitting around 260, 265 right now. So
Okay.
I've used the keto diet with many NFL offensive linemen and college offensive linemen. I know the benefits as far as cognitive function, what it can do to help suppress some of the lingering effects of traumatic brain injury, the recovery aspect, some of the dual energy sources, and also reduction of inflammation. Another thing that we found pretty exciting is that it was very easy for us to recomposition the body in with the keto lifestyle, but then also being able to actually manipulate scale weight. So that was also a pretty good aspect of it.
When you say manipulate scale weight, what does that mean? Shifting
Well,
fat and weight, fat and muscle
yeah.
ratio?
Well, the thing is I think a lot of people's interpretation of losing weight and dropping fat, they think it's if they don't know any better, they take it as the same thing.
Right, yeah.
You can lose weight on the scale, and your body composition can be the exact same.
Right.
Versus you can drop body fat and you can be heavier on the scale. So people don't understand that. So what we were seeing with some of these offensive linemen is that after they were adapted and really took on the keto lifestyle, it was possible that if they had played at 335, 340, that, they would drop weight initially and then go back up to, 340, kind of stabilize, but their body fat had dropped 3%. Or if we had guys who were heavier and all of a sudden need to lose weight, to make weigh-ins, because a lot of heavier offensive linemen have to do that. We're saying that we can get them, being carb depleted and fat adapted, to drop 10 pounds, but then also be able to, within 3 or 4 days, be able to put the weight back on just by water manipulation, sodium, and things of that nature. So it was very easy. You can't really do that when you're running off of glucose all the time. Like it's a grind to be able to drop that type of weight.
So how many athletes have you introduced the keto lifestyle to? Is it, and did they think you were crazy when they told you to eat a whole bunch of coconut oil?
It's funny you say that. I would say, me, myself personally, I have probably introduced 30 to 40 to the keto diet, but I would say probably 10 have stuck with it, or at least try to get into ketosis at various points in their off season. Of course, during the season, they've got to make some changes for recovery and things of that nature. But I would say probably 10 have stuck with it through various points.
Wow, fascinating. So then we somehow got connected, and we just sent you, our Ketone Ester. And I think you're one of the heavier people to have ever tested it. So I was crossing my fingers on the quantity that we had to give you.
Yeah.
We ended up giving you 80 grams as opposed to the 60 grams that we normally give to, the cyclists that are in the, 175 pounds. So go ahead. How was it?
Well, a couple of years ago, I had I think I told you guys I had a run with an ester, and it was phenomenal. It was great, and I mean, this is not stuff that you just get your hands on every day. So I've used the BHB salts, which, I mean, there's benefits to those, but nothing like I experienced taking the KE4. And, within 10 to 15 minutes is when you notice it's time for takeoff or the cognitive function. And just a little background, yesterday, and I didn't tell you this, I actually did 2 workouts yesterday. I woke up yesterday morning, fasted, and did kind of a movement screen, high intensity workout at about 7 a.m. I then came home and I had black coffee and really nothing else until I went and did my main workout yesterday with even an intense finisher. So within 10 to 15 minutes of consuming the ester, I noticed it's time for liftoff. And of course, we were checking. I woke up yesterday morning at 0.6 millimole as far as my ketone levels. And within the first 15 minutes of taking it, I was at 4.3,
Okay.
heading into my workout. So I thought that was whoa, okay. The way I structure my workouts now is I have a pretty intense warm up. As I'm getting older, I've noticed that that's important to really get into it. And I did what I call a dynamic effort day yesterday for lower body, which is high intensity, everything, the time is rest. And typically I need every bit of the 90 seconds in between sets. Yesterday, I was ready to go, I would say probably after 20 or 30 seconds of, rest. It was phenomenal.
So what did you do? Did you stick with the 90 or did you cut it short and start at the 30 and 60?
The first couple of sets, I stuck with the 90. And so I did 8 sets of 3 with deadlift rack pulls at about 450 pounds plus 175 pounds of accommodating band resistance. So, I mean, that's a butt kicker. I mean, you're getting after it. You're doing 3 reps every 90 seconds. And I'm a stickler for the timing of the rest. Well, like I said, I stuck to that for the first couple of sets. And then after that, I started cutting it down. And
You
I
got
think
bored.
it got to a point where I was only using about 30 seconds of rest. And then I went on to 2 primary auxiliary lifts or special exercises, which were fine. But then what I noticed after about an hour and 45 minutes, when I'm going to do my finisher, and my finisher is an absolute burner. It's a belt squat walk that really builds up lactic acid, and it gets you winded. Pretty much what you have is 400 pounds and a belt around your waist, and you're walking. And I mean, you're walking for 45 seconds, and then you take 20 seconds off, and you do that for about 12 minutes of work. Well, typically, again, I need every second of the 20 seconds typically when I do it. But honestly, I probably could have walking in the belt for a minute and then probably taken 10 seconds of rest. And really, I had to cut myself off from going anymore because I didn't get tired. I didn't feel that fatigue. I wasn't winded. It was like that. I never had to catch my second breath because I never ran out of the first, if that makes sense to you guys. So it was pretty phenomenal. And I went home afterwards, and I think I should have checked 45 minutes into the workout, but I would say probably an hour and 20 minutes in the workout, I was at 5.0. I had probably gotten higher without burning off some of those ketones. So that was something that I should have checked. But even when I got home, I was around 2.3. And then last night before I went to bed, I was at 1.9. And then this morning I woke up, I was at, 0.9, which is high for me. Typically I'm around 0.6, 0.7, never 0.9 upon waking up fasting.
What'd you have for dinner and lunch?
Yesterday for lunch?
Yesterday, after the workout,
Well, ironically, after my workout was about 4 p.m., so I kind of did a dinner lunch type deal, all in the same accord. All I had was broccoli and a broccoli jumbo shrimp stir fry and ghee and avocado oil.
right.
Pretty simple.
And how was your recovery that following morning after the workout? What would it normally be like?
I'll tell you what, last night I slept really, really well. I slept really well, sound asleep. Never even woke up to use the restroom, which typically I do. Then I woke up this morning with really, really fresh legs and still feeling, the cognitive function. So I normally get up around 5 a.m., which I did this morning, but I didn't have my coffee. Fat coffee is what I took in this morning. I didn't have that till about 9. And then, like I said, I tested my ketones even when I woke up, and I was still, pretty high. So
would you normally have been sore the next day after that type of workout?
I would not say sore, but legs would be heavy.
Right.
When you wake up, you're like, oh, okay, I feel it. I haven't experienced that at all today. And then my guess is if I feel like this today, then tomorrow should be a piece of cake as well. Because typically, when you're going to be sore with DOMS for the next, 2 to 3 days.
Right. Well, delayed onset. That's going to be a huge thing. So we'll definitely put in a little insert into this video as to how you felt the next day, because that's huge. If you can, I would think that'd be huge if you could do that hard workout more times a week than you normally would.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was the real gauge for me is that typically on my dynamic effort leg days, I don't do double workouts. Like I make sure I have a certain amount of calories in before I go in there, because leg days absolutely deplete me. So I want to make sure that I typically have 2,000 calories in, before I go into a leg day. So the fact that yesterday I got up, fasted, did, a high intensity movement screening type workout, that went in and did my heavy lifting in the evening just off of ketones was pretty phenomenal. I mean, it was.
And how was your hunger level during the workout, and even when you had dinner?
Hunger level had completely suppressed. I mean, yesterday, that meal that I had after my workout was the only thing that I ate.
Right.
So, and in that regard, in terms of hunger, I wasn't very hungry, and I didn't wake up this morning starving either. So, and I typically cut off eating at 7:30 anyway. But I had that meal probably around 4:30, and again, I wasn't hungry. I was satisfied. Had a little water last night, but that was about it.
So you did take the protocol, which was actually glucose first, and then the ester 20 minutes later. So, some might say, oh, maybe it was just the glucose loading, and maybe that's what did it. Any comments on that?
Absolutely not. Typically, when you take glucose like that, especially that much, because I don't ever really consume glucose. If you had glucose alone, you would crash. I mean, it would be like you got hit on the chin and not be able to move. And so for me, I would say that I believe that the ketone ester drove the glucose out, which, I mean, if we look at what the research suggests, I mean, that's typically what an ester will do is completely drive the glucose. So, no, I wouldn't say the glucose did that. I've had experience with trying to carb up, quote unquote, and it doesn't work for me. It absolutely makes me feel terrible.
And how did this compare to the ketone ester you had 3 years ago? Probably different workout. Anything different on mental clarity, recovery, motivation to do the next exercise? Anything different?
I would say that this lasted longer in terms of the filling and potency. I would say that essentially the ester that I experimented with back in 2013 was probably about a 3-hour type filling and cognitive function. Now, granted, I mean, I was in Arizona and I was working out in 110 degree heat, that second one. So I don't know if that played a factor, but this one was more sustained. It was more sustained. I would say the recovery today is better than what I remember then. So I would say this is a whole different breed, I would say, of ketone ester.
So just to give the audience a little bit of a background, there are technically dozens of quote unquote ketone esters that are possible. There's racemic versions, there's acetoacetate versions, glycerol versions. There's technically a bunch. People hear, the phrase ketone ester, and it kind of all gets lumped into one. And we're technically the world's first ketone ester, but there could be other things. And I think we did confirm that you actually did take a ketone ester, because at one point in time, one of the salts actually came out and put on the bottle ketone ester, and that confused the heck out of a lot of people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I don't think you took one of those salts. I think you actually took a real ketone ester.
Uh-huh.
So that was, I haven't heard anybody else do that. So it was really great to, hey, what's the difference?
Yeah, it was in a clear bottle, and it was like rocket fuel.
Yeah. Oh,
which
so
I
how did this one taste? It was talk
which,
about that.
which
The
I was
one we
which
gave.
I was gonna say. This one was like it was like maybe taking in a shot of tequila, like a reposado tequila with like maybe like a honey squeezed into it. Like
Okay.
there was like a hint of honey. And
Yeah.
honestly, I didn't need the carbonated water
Okay.
behind it at all. I mean, it was just I was expecting something just absolutely like rocket fuel, like the last
Well, I was
experience.
trying to manage your expectations because it's all relative to how much tequila you've ever drank.
Well, I'm a Don Julio 1942 guy, so
Okay.
I drink the good stuff when I do.
So right now we're saying that it tastes like bad tequila, and our hope is that it'll taste like good tequila. So that's our spectrum.
I would say a whale tequila is definitely the taste right now.
Okay, yeah, and you probably wouldn't mind taking that once a day if it did what it's supposed to do, or
No,
needed it.
no, not at all. I mean, like I said, I was expecting something way worse,
All right.
and like for me, it doesn't matter if it's going to make me better in my performance, especially still competing in powerlifting and the the high intensity in which I train at, 5 to 6 days a week. I don't care what it tastes like.
Right.
Now that it tastes halfway decent, of course I wouldn't mind taking it every day.
So what do you think, reflecting back on the NFL, what do you think would be the best use scenario for them? The training months, the during game, or maybe halftime game?
I would say year round, and I would say that a different protocol would be should be put in place probably for a training camp in terms of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Having reaching some of that peak VO2 max, taking out some of the lactic acid and reduction of inflammation. I mean, training camp is a grind. I mean, it's typically a month of Groundhog Day. Every day looks the same. Sprinkled with games in there. As we go into the season, I think that things would have to be modified just a bit. It's not as taxing in terms of what you're doing in practice, the way the new CBA has practice structured, but you would definitely need to have the ketone ester on hand for performance,
Right.
actually on game days. I'm not sure exactly how a protocol will be put in place, but my guess is maybe a pregame and then a halftime type of deal.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. We'd have to figure out whether at halftime whether you needed to recarb up or not. That'd be big.
I don't think so.
Well, we've tried it once where at halftime, not in that sport, but in a different sport, and they just took 70% of what they took one ketone ester full serving, and then a couple hours later they just topped off with the ketone ester, and I think that they actually skyrocketed off the charts too much. And I think if you go too high and you don't have the carbs, you might get an insulin response.
Gotcha.
Even though,
especially those that are borderline pre-diabetic, probably, huh?
well, this person wasn't, but
Okay.
I think that they just had the cumulative effect. They went too high, and then they just didn't get the cognitive function, and they just felt sleepy. I think it was an insulin spike.
Gotcha.
So we had to figure out, do we do another round of the gel packs, wait 20 minutes, and do the ketones, or maybe how long is the game from start to finish?
Depends. Typically 3 hours.
3 hours? Well, I mean, did you have 3 hours of performance? Yeah,
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's so long lasting.
Yeah.
You might not need it.
Yeah, you might be able to go the entire game just drinking water on the sideline and make those orange buckets be
Absolutely.
unutilized.
I agree. I mean, I would even say, and this is a touchy situation, I would almost be willing to say that even in a case of a high impact TBI during a game, a player should probably consume a KE4 almost immediately without the presence of glucose.
Well, we're hoping to do continued research in that area. It's
absolutely
very early, and it kind of sounds cockamamie whenever you talk to an NFL MD about it. If they don't have any knowledge, any background in it, it's just like yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, but it's especially if you're somebody who has not ever been adapted or ketones has never been in,
right?
When it hits you the first time, and the cognitive enhancement is really what you notice before you notice anything else. So, I mean, the research suggests that I mean, there would probably be very great benefits to somebody who suffered a TBI to almost consume immediately versus being given any type of thing with glucose or anything like that.
Right. Well, we'd love to continue research in that area. What about yourself? You had traumatic brain injuries in your?
I think I've had 2 concussions.
Okay.
That I like to say I've had 2 concussions that I remember. So,
What did the cognitive, this, when you took it for the workout, tell me more about the cognitive boost. Did you feel like a zone feeling or time
absolutely.
dilation even? Any time
No,
dilation?
it was definitely tunnel vision. It was
Uh-huh.
definitely tunnel vision. And the zone, so to speak, quote unquote, to me, a lot of times is when preparation meets confidence and focus.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's very hard for people to get there and stay there. So it happens maybe once a season for an NFL player, or
Yep.
once a season for, a competitive lifter, once every other meet. And I felt like that yesterday I was able to get into that proverbial zone within, 15 minutes where I had blinders on and everything is just straight ahead, focused, dialed in. I had almost like want to rewind and say, man, I want this during a competition, because especially when you go to powerlifting competition, there's so many distractions. It's such a long day. I don't know if you guys have ever been, but I mean, you're typically there. You start lifting at 9 a.m. and depending on how big the meet is, a lot of times you won't finish till 6 p.m., especially with me. I mean, I'm a bigger lifter. And so I'm always in the last flight of every single, squat, bench, and deadlift. So it makes for a long day. And that being in the zone and staying in the zone would be very beneficial for me, even as a competitive powerlifter.
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Steve, can you think of anything else as we wrap it up? You're on mute.
The 2,000 calories that you said you would typically load on a big leg day, like what would that be made up of?
Majority fat. I would say probably 75 to 80% fat. Take in some protein at breakfast. Typically I'll take in, 4 slices of bacon. Maybe I'll make some cauliflower tots and bake them. And then for lunch, maybe some, red meat, something that, is going to really stick, but about 75 to 80% fat. And then of course, protein.
Right.
All right. Great. Good to hear the positive results.
Fellas,
did you have any issues with breathing? Because that's one of the reasons why you have to take the glucose is that you have the glucose helps fuel the breathing aspect of it. So
Zero.
You had some top end, your heart was racing at near maximum. You didn't have any gasping for air issues.
No, none. I think you sent me what was it, 5 glucose packs?
Yeah.
Or something like that. And you told me to kind of monitor how much I take. I think I ended up taking 3.5. So I didn't take all 5 of them.
You took 3.5. When did you take them? All at once, right?
Yeah, 20 minutes before.
So you took 3 packets.
Yeah, I didn't take the 5. I thought that would have been too much for me.
Oh, well, the plan was to take all 5, but glad to know that you worked. Okay, we'll note that down for next time that we don't. Now you are keto adapted, so it's a little bit trickier whether keto adapted people might not need as much glucose. But we have found that if they have no glucose, then their legs feel great, but then their respiratory, they can't breathe.
I didn't have any of those issues at all.
Okay.
There was none of that. Like I felt capacity was very high, very high.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm just going to stop the video, and thanks for having us on. Maybe we'll join your podcast on the flip side.
Hey, we definitely need to do that. That'd be great.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.